years finding as many ways as we possibly can to either deliver the service for less, or deliver it in a different way, or, and the important word is deliver. Somehow we want to continue to deliver, albeit that it may look quite different, but the service will still be there. Cabinet has priorities: education, vulnerable people, enterprise and job creation, and in response to a lot of the feedback from the last couple of years, events like this, locally accessible services. People keep on saying, try and keep the local services going as long as you possibly can. We don't want to deal with people remotely. So we've added that locally accessible services as a fourth priority. So going into the finances, where do we get our money from? Well, we get 67.6 million in the current year from the Revenue Support Grant and other associated grants from Welsh Government. We get 26.7 million from our share of the business rates that are collected. And apart from a little bit of reserve funding, the rest of our money, some 49 million, has to come from council tax. Now, in Wales, generally speaking, you get about, can I go back one please, Abby? In Wales, generally speaking, the green parts of that come to about 80% of your budget. As you can see with us, it very definitely doesn't. And we have to collect somewhere in the region of 34% of our income from council tax. Caerphilly, for instance, only has to collect about 17%. So if we're not to burden our council taxpayers even more than they currently are, it's absolutely essential that we find these better ways of doing things. And why are we having such difficulty? Well, those of you who've been to previous presentations will be familiar with this slide. But the point about this slide this year, even worse than previous years, is that we're almost not on the scale in terms of funding. In fact, our funding would look better if we started at £1 instead of £1,000, but our funding is only 2/3 per head of population than Blaenau Gwent, which is only just up the road. And if we had the same funding as them, we'd have another 40–50 million pounds to be able to run Monmouthshire with. And clearly we're not going to get it, and the reason we're not going to get it is that we don't have any deprivation. We all know we have got deprivation, but officially we don't, and because of that we don't get any funding for that, and correspondingly we get the lowest settlement per head of population than any authority in Monmouthshire. But I said to you that we had to, because of that lack of funding, we had to collect somewhere around 34% of our income from council tax. And if we go to the next slide, you'll see that the Welsh average for council tax is here. Monmouthshire is here. We have virtually the same figure as the average for Wales, considerably lower than that maximum funded authority. That's all the way up here. So if your house was in Blaenau Gwent, you would be paying considerably more in council tax than you are being in Monmouthshire. Okay. So what do we do with this money when we've got it? Well, 51 million of it goes on education. That's one of our priorities, as I said in the previous slide, and another 38 million goes on social care. If you don't make savings within these two sectors, even though we're protecting them, the effect on the green and the purple sectors And the green would be leisure centres, museums, cultural and associated stuff around there. The 16.3, the purple sector, is waste and highways and all operational matters that Roger Hoggins there is in charge of, and Roger will be able to answer any questions as we come to that later on. If we don't make savings here, that £5 million, which is what we're expecting the reduction to be, something very close to 5 million anyway, has got to hit here. And if it hits here, £5 million worth of savings is going to decimate services. So we've got to find that better way of doing stuff, even though for years I keep coming along saying we have to redesign, we have to be more innovative, we have to find all of these different ways of providing the service. We have to look at other authorities. Can they do it for us? Can we do it for them? Can the private sector help us? All of these things we have to look at. So we've put together a load of budget proposals and we'll go through those in a minute. And what we need to know from members of the public who are attending these sessions is, what do you think? Do you agree with us? Do you not agree with us? Have you got a particular view on the way something's done, so that you can say to us, well, we know you do that like that, but why don't you do it this way? If we've already thought of it and discounted it, that's fine, thank you very much for the suggestion, but you might have thought of something, particularly if you're a user, that makes us think, yeah, why don't we do it that way? So it's important that we get public feedback so that we can test ourselves, particularly from people like yourselves who are the users of frontline services. So what we're going to do now, each of the chief officers has recorded a short video clip which says in their own words what they're planning to do. And once we've listened to those, we'll do them one at a time. I'll refresh your minds on the proposals that they're coming up with, and then you'll have noticed you've got some green and yellow and white sheets of paper. We're all going to pretend that we're on that show on BBC Two that follows The Apprentice. We're going to hold up little cards and we're all going to see what people think on that. So let's go to the first one, which is Kelly Byrne, and she's going to tell you all about it.
A number of different proposals.
Okay, when that rejigs itself, we'll have a look at the next slide. Honest, we will. There we are. So, Kelly gave you a run through of the ideas that she's putting forward to help us cope with this 6.3 million gap. And she spoke about leisure, tourism, youth services and cultural services with a £354,000 potential saving. The idea of putting it into a trust or a not-for-profit company, there's several vehicles we can use, particularly if they've got charitable status, is that we can stop having to pay 100% of the business rate that relates to that. We can get an 80% discount on that. That will give us a considerable saving. It will also enable us to pull in, or to enable those organisations that have created, or the organisation, if we can get it into one, will be able to pull in different grants and funding streams that MCC can't do. So this is all aimed with the same people. We're not getting rid of the staff and say we're going to get this new company and it's going to run everything. The same people are going to run it. And if you've got any questions on that, Ian Saunders is down there who will be able to tell you all about it, because he's in charge of all that part of the county's activities. We're looking to do that sort of thing and save that money. Now, it is often a good idea as we go through at each of these stages, if anybody's got any questions, to ask them now, because if we leave it to the end, it all gets a bit disjointed. So, yes, sir. And
in another life, I was the manager of Shire Hall, and when I was running that building, it was put to me by Steve Greenslade at the time that it should be converted into a trust. And when we put that to the people of Monmouth, they said no, that would impose too many responsibilities on us. Have you tested the market to find out whether there is an appetite for making trusts?
I'll ask Ian to come in on that, because he's been very heavily involved in that.
Yeah, I'm not sure testing the market. We've certainly done a lot of research into different vehicles, different models, and that's something that going forward we're going to have to do an options appraisal on the best type of vehicle for a trust. But I would like to say that we're not alone in this. I think 20 of the 22 authorities in Wales are currently looking at similar models. Our neighbouring authorities have already gone into trust status for quite a few of these facilities. So I guess that's the sort of direction of travel for all these services at the moment.
It's worth saying at this stage, and I'm glad you've given me the opportunity, because what I'm about to say applies to absolutely everything. There are people out there, and there will always be people out there who will, from an ideological point of view or from a lack of information point of view, for any of their own personal reasons, who will say, I don't want you to do that. They will often form groups who will say, I don't want you to do that. I have a simple message for those, and this is purely from the point of view of the situation that we face. I don't want to close your service. Are you asking me to close it? So unless we can find these alternative ways of keeping things going, those services will close. We had a situation in one of our towns where the town council decided that they didn't, for various reasons, want to contribute to an offer that we made. Services are already closing in that area. So we are at the stage where unless we can find ways of getting these ideas to work, services will be lost. And once we lose those services, getting them back is going to be extremely difficult. If we've got, should we say, a library that we have to close on one day a week to save money, that's infinitely preferable to closing that library. So you know, we can always get it back. We go back to that. slide. And before I go on to the next point, if you're happy with the general principle that we've been speaking about with regards to retaining all of those services, I'd be grateful if you could hold up a green card. If you don't, then hold up a red, so we can get a straw poll. If you feel that, yeah, I'll come in now. If you feel that you need more information, then hold up the white card and we'll try and come to you later. Yes, madam.
Chair, I think it's like Turkey's voting for Christmas this morning, because we've got no option really. At the end of the day, we're all in this together. I remember the little message coming out 6 years ago, and we're still travelling that way. I'm concerned when you mention trust, because I, perhaps like other people here, don't understand exactly how this trust would work. Is it something that goes to the Cayman Islands and stowed there for a while? Or I think we're all entitled to know how this trust would work. It's very important, these arm-length organisations, etc. So I notice also in one of your mandates, mandate 18, that you've got a number of properties, but also you're increasing the number of staff, etc. Well, we can't argue with that. Work is work and somebody's livelihood. But one hand you're increasing here and the next hand you're taking from. So the trust is my main point.
Okay, Ian, do you want to come back on that?
Yeah, I think the word trust is one that is banded around a lot. The one we're most looking at is a community, a sort of mutual, which is potentially going to be owned by staff and communities, and we're very much focusing on this local offer. So we want to make sure that power of responsibility can develop to enable local influence over service delivery in the later years. We want to make sure that it has got a local feel, and it's not just one of these big trusts that just come in and, you know, the local delivery with the different towns and the different is really important to that model. So we're not looking at, should we say, an art, you know, it's still going to be, you know, very close to the council, and obviously very, very important to make sure that we keep community focus at the heart of that.
I do think, Chair, that we need more information on that before we vote for those sort of things. How it's going to work.
Can we vote for the principle of finding another vehicle that will enable us to run these services more efficiently? That's not quite the same question, but it gives us a sense of direction. Yes, sir.
These trusts, will they work like a charitable trust, or will they be something different?
They will have charitable status, probably.
Yeah, as I say, it's still quite early in the technical side of this, because it is very complex. There's lots of different models out there. So I'd just like to reassure we are looking at options, and then elected members will decide on the type of vehicle we're talking about. But in principle, we're talking about a mutual benefit society that is sort of got a board that is, you know, representative of the communities and business, and also elected members. We're looking at a trading arm that potentially will, if there is more income to be made, will generate profit back into the whole organisation. So the whole thing is meant to be looking at being more efficient, being more fleet of foot, being able to move quickly, but any profit that is made will be reinvested back into the service. So I think that's about as much as I can explain it at the moment. But it certainly isn't talking about arms, you know, a long way away from the community. It's very much with that the staff driving this and the experts from the services and the community being very involved in this model.
The same model, Chair, as our council is based on at the moment.
Appreciate that, but the priorities of the council, whilst protecting local services is the fourth priority. Education, social service, you know, is a priority, and you've seen the statistics and the budget and what Councillor Murphy has put forward this morning. And if the priorities are, which rightly are young children and are vulnerable in society, the amount of budget required to deliver the services of tourism, leisure and culture are going to be compromised. We were told by ministers to expect 50 to 60% reduction in budget over the next 3 or 4 years. Our buildings, our fabrics of our buildings are in need of investment. So with this new model, we'll be looking at an investment strategy as well to coincide with, you know, putting these services back onto a more sustainable footing. But at the moment, there's only one way for these services to go, unfortunately, in the current climate inside local authority.
Be interesting to know what investment you're seeking to make for the future. Have you got money to invest?
In a later slide, I'll tell you what additional monies we are going to put into other services. But I can't keep saying more. We are in a position, you imagine if anybody is in employment and they're put on short time, they earn less money. If you earn less money, you can't do as much, or you have to prioritise what you are going to do with the money you've got. We are in exactly that position. We are in a position where our funding is going to be cut, and cut substantially. We've already cut existing services to the bone. Our absolute priority is keeping services going, and we have to find another way of doing it. And that is the reality. What we're looking for is people's indications as to the direction we're going. There's a question from Adrian at the back. Can you speak up loud, Adrian, so that otherwise the microphones won't pick you up for YouTube?
Thank you, Councillor Murphy. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Adrian Edwards. I think working on a arm's length company could only be an advantage to the council.
No.
But the issue is, if you have a board set up to run a trust, will there be non-members and non-officers elected to that board? So you will have an external input into the running of that board or charity?
Here?
One of the things we value in Monmouthshire is the high level of social capital and the expertise out there in the community, and it's something we would really be looking to embrace. And I think when the time comes to establish the board, we would be writing to all our networks and making sure that anyone in the community with the expertise and the skill sets that we require to be part of that board. It certainly won't be just as a few people. It will be definitely a whole skill set of different skills and expertise that we need to thrive.
So, Councillor Murphy, you won't be working on the same process as the programme boards? You will look at it as a totally different entity?
They'll have to be properly constituted, otherwise we don't get the financial benefits that I was talking about. And if we're going to get them set up in that way, we obviously want the most advantageous mix of people so that we can pull in those skills that will enable us to keep the services going. There's a lady there who had a question. Make sure your microphone's on.
You mentioned that some of the neighbouring counties have already gone down this road. So I just wondered, had you had an opportunity to consult with them about their experience? And with the benefit of hindsight, is it something that they are glad they did or that they regret?
Yeah, thank you, Louise. Yes, I'm in regular contact with the chief execs of those trusts. Some are more successful than others. There's things that they possibly would have done slightly differently, but at least you're right, we've got the benefit of having those discussions with them. I'm meeting with three of the five on Wednesday afternoon, where we talk about active Gwent and all the performance indicators across sports development and leisure throughout Gwent. And there's some very good examples, some really good work going on. So yeah, we'll embrace that and make sure we share that knowledge and work with those trusts as well.
I'm a bit puzzled by idea 9 as well as for the first one. Have you, and I don't quite see, are you going to have one trust with different branches or a trust for each of the sections you mention? And will some communities find this quite hard if they've got something like a museum in their area? It's not going to be very fair, is it?
Well, that's what's being worked up. If I was to guess where we'll end up, it'll be with one, because then we'll get the economies of scale within that organisation as well. But that is just purely an anticipation of how it might be worked out. The idea of Ian meeting with all of these existing trust models is to learn from them, to learn what mistakes that they made, and to tailor a package that we can then look at in detail. May well have to come out to existing groups and get an input from it, but at least we'll know what it is that we're putting through. Like all of these ideas at the moment, they're not firm proposals, they're ideas being worked up so that we can, by the time we get to council tax setting in March, we can have a much better idea of the structures that are going to work. Could you switch your mic off, please?
Tom. I'd like to make a plea, really, for us realising that just closing a service that appears to be tourism or cultural, like toilets, like disabled toilets, for instance, throughout our area, has a real knock-on effect on the quality of life of not just tourists coming to our area, which all our towns depend on a lot, but on disabled people. The one that you're thinking of closing and have asked, in fact, for the shop mobility scheme in Abergavenny to take on board is a toilet in the car park there, and you're asking them to take it on, or you have asked them to take it on, and asking disabled people to run a loo when they're actually running a scheme helping people get round the town. And I think to do that in a year where we've got the Eisteddfod coming to Abergavenny is a fairly serious concern, or it should be, as we are so dependent on tourism in our areas. Public toilets. I listened for 20 years to complaints about the old toilets that we had in the area, not just Abergavenny, but all throughout Monmouthshire. There were a lot of complaints about them. The answer can't be just shutting them. Could you reply?
Okay, Roger is in charge of all of that, so as he's here, I'll give him the opportunity of responding.
Okay, thanks very much. Transferring of public toilets over, we haven't actually closed many toilets as such, but what we have done is ask town and community councils to take them on rather than the county council fund them. It's under one of the ideas in here where we try and put some of the services out to the local councils for them to undertake rather than the county council having to fund them all. And this is one of those. In Chepstow, the public conveniences, with the exception of one, which was in a bit of an obscure place anyway, are all still open, but they're run by the town council. Now in Monmouth, there's one run by the town council, there's one run by the county council. In Caldicott, the one down there is run by the town council. In Goitra, it's run by the community council. Grosmont is run by the community council. So it's taking that idea on further. Unfortunately, if the town councils don't necessarily take that up, or the community councils, then the county council has a difficult decision around which ones do they keep open. Do they keep them all open, or do they keep some of them open? And they have to have that debate as well. But it does form part of an existing proposal, along with other things around street sweeping, manual street sweeping, and other services where we're looking to work more closely with other organisations, town and community councils, but others as well, in trying to maintain services which otherwise are going to be at risk. The authority has quite clearly said its priorities lie around education, social care, enterprise and generating jobs. So we have to look at the other areas as well. And this is one of the ways of trying to retain services. Sometimes the public aren't that worried who's providing it as long as it's there. So we are trying to work along that vein, but ultimately we'll come back to the County Council to look at its priorities. But we're trying this way and have been for some years.
Okay, could you turn your microphone off, please? Yes, sir.
But that's only really smoke and mirrors, isn't it? Because what you're saying with a lot of these issues is we are now taking these down to the community council. The community council is then having to put the precept up, which means that we're still paying increased amounts. I don't mind that, but we're still paying increased amounts. It's just you're saying from Monmouthshire County Council, we're not putting the council tax up, rather than the local community councils who are having to put the precept up in order to take over all the services that you are refusing to. And that's why some local councils are unable to say that we're going to do this, because their precepts are already ginormous. Now, I'm happy to pay for services. I'm sure lots of other people are happy to pay for services. If I use something, I'm quite happy to pay for it. What has happened in Monmouthshire, I know you've got the situation, which is a totally iniquitous situation where Monmouthshire is, as you showed in your graph there, so low down on the per head ratio. I mean, I've taught in Monmouthshire for 35 years. I know the level of deprivation in some of our areas in Monmouthshire. But what has also happened over the last few years is that Monmouthshire has maintained virtually, other than the last year or so, a sort of tax freeze. Well, that's not sustainable. The money is going to have to come from somewhere, or the service is going to have to disappear. Trusts even are another figment, really. Yes, you may have savings, but if things are not really commercially viable within the council, some things are not going, lots of these things are not going to be commercially viable outside. If you're saying we're going to have to take them down, ultimately it's more honourable to say, well, we can't afford to have this. I'm willing to try a trust, but the other thing that I'd be more than worried about, how long has this trust issue been on the agenda? How long have you had the trust issue on the agenda so far?
As regards thinking about moving to an alternative delivery model?
As a delivery model.
Well, I think, bear in mind, other neighbouring sort of authorities the last 3 years have been starting to move in that direction. It's been quite high on the agenda. It's high on Welsh Government agenda as well. So I think it's something that you're going to see more and more of, and it's not going to be less of this.
But how long has Monmouthshire had it on the agenda?
Well, I think when we started thinking about, last year, there's some big asks to find of tourism, leisure and culture. Our current financial in-year budget is becoming increasingly difficult. So I think you're looking at probably at least six months previous to that.
But we haven't yet, or you haven't yet, formulated what this trust is going to look like. Right? This is the situation we had last year with the hub situation. You come along with a proposal for hubs, but you haven't formulated a proposal of what's going to happen in Abergavenny for hubs. So you're in a situation where, yes, you've generated savings by losing some of the staff in hubs, but you haven't sorted out what's going to happen where this hub is actually physically going to be. If you've got an agenda that relates to ongoing cuts, which we know have got to happen, you need to be formulating these strategies earlier than just say, come to a meeting, we're agreeing to something in principle that we have really no clue how it's going to pan out. You're saying, yes, there's a saving of £80,000 or whatever the sum was in business rates. Yeah, that's fair enough, by putting it into a trust. But are we sure that all this is going to happen? We don't even know what the structure of this trust is going to be. And yet this trust is supposed to, I assume, be in place by next April, in order to generate, or at least throughout some time of next year, in order to generate those savings. Otherwise, once again, those savings won't be generated. This is a council that had, what was it, £438,000, I think, in duplicate invoices over the last 3 or 4 years, where they paid their bills twice.
Well, I'll cut in there. There's an awful lot of that is, quite frankly, just not quite right. For instance, all the hubs are running, with the exception of Abergavenny, where we've had...
Well, that's the one I'm talking about.
I know, you made that quite clear, but you said that we hadn't got any of the hubs done. Yes, we have. It's only Abergavenny that we haven't.
I didn't say we didn't have any of all the hubs done.
Okay, I'm not gonna, let's not have an argument about it. The important thing is there's been an awful lot of work going on around trying to get the Abergavenny hub going. There are a lot of difficulties within Abergavenny, and there's a lot of work being done on it. With regards to the trust model or not, the easiest decision that we can make is to close. We can save all of this and just start closing down services. But we're not doing that. We're not taking that easy option of closing down services. We're continuing to find ways in a very difficult arena of keeping things going. The idea of moving towards local town and community councils assisting us is that a town and community council can raise a precept. We can raise council tax, but we'll be capped. If we don't get local town and community councils to assist us in keeping the services open that they consider are important to them, because if they're happy for it to close, well, that's fine, that's a local decision made by the local people, then that's one thing. But the whole purpose of this is to continue to find ways that we can do things. Sometimes it takes longer than just saying, oh, well, let's do so and so. It isn't as simple as that. I'm going to move on because we're never going to get through this presentation, and we're starting to drift into areas that are on further slides. So, all right, we won't have to deal with them next time. That's true, but you know, let's try and keep it in context. Adrian, I'll take one more question off you, then I'm going to move on.
Thank you, Phil. I just will say it now for 16-17 financial years. I said 13-14, 14-15 financial year. Community and town councils are they're part of the local government structure. I said in 13-14, I said it again last year, and I'll say it again now. Not once have Monmouthshire County Council come to community and town councils in Monmouthshire to say what you're going to do and how you would like to work in partnership. I'm the clerk to 2 councils in Monmouth. There are 29 community and town councils. You may have been to the town councils, but you've not been to the community councils. Some councils are willing to look and work in partnership with you, but you have not come, Phil, to speak to that sector. It's like if you're blanking the sector out altogether, and Roger is fully aware of that as well, because he sat in a meeting last year with it.
Well, Roger is the one that's been going round them all, so I don't really quite follow that. There are some people who've still got their microphones on, so we get all sorts of problems with the live streaming if you've got too many mics on. So, can we go back to the thing? Is it in order to ask you for the general principle relating to finding a vehicle that keeps these services open? If we can I see a green card? If not, can I see red, please? Okay, it's overwhelmingly green. Thank you very much for that. Admin and training and IT efficiencies, that's internal. We're going to do that anyway. It won't have any effect on the public. It will just save us money that we can reinvest in frontline services. The community asset transfer of 2 buildings, that's part of a scheme whereby we are negotiating with community groups, village halls, that sort of thing, together with some larger organisations, to transfer assets to them so they can run them completely, so it takes the maintenance burden away from MCC. We're currently in negotiation with several town groups and villages with village halls who've come forward with business cases and say, look, we'd like to join in this programme as well. That will enable us to transfer to the groups that are actually running them and save some money at the same time. Again, the general principle of allowing groups that run these organisations to have more control over their businesses is something that I'd like an indication of. So, green or red on the principle of negotiating with groups who come forward and say, look, we'd like to run our building ourselves. Okay, that's lovely. Thank you very much. The next one is the planning fees increase. That will only affect you if you're about to put in a planning application. Those are not our figures, they're the Welsh Government's, so there's no point in having a vote on that. We have to do it anyway. That's just what we anticipate getting out of it. With regard to the shared lodging housing scheme, that's where we negotiate with private landlords. There are incentives from government that now make it a far more realistic scheme to bring forward. It will enable us to do more towards placing people in private accommodation where the housing associations can't cope with it, and will also enable us to target social care far more accurately than it currently is. So that can only be of benefit to the community by freeing up properties and providing better social care. And in doing that, we anticipate getting an income off that of some £50,000. So again, the principle that relates to enabling people to rent properties on a far more equitable basis with targeted social care. Can I have an indication of where we are with that? And that looks pretty universal. Okay, thank you. And the next one then is Roger, and as he's taken the trouble of recording his bit, we'll play that and then we'll go back through, and you'll find that we've already discussed an awful lot of what Roger's about to say.
Chair, can I ask a question on information, please?
Of course you can. As regards IT, that's mostly the way we store information and access information. That's really an internal thing. I'm not really sure how that's going to impact on individuals.
It also applies to people. Just mentioning, how does it fit in with your vision of taking everybody forward in the integrated plan?
Well, we try and take everybody forward as efficiently as we can, but we also have a long stop position. If somebody wants to contact the council and doesn't want to do it through IT, then the one-stop shops and the telephone system is still available. Nothing has been taken away there. We're just bringing additional facilities in that an awful lot of people are happy to use, but don't have to. And it saves us money in the meantime. That's money that we don't waste, if you like, there. and because we're not utilising it there, we can divert it into frontline services to keep them going. So going back to that slide that came up during Roger's piece. Can we magic that up, Abby? Lovely, thank you very much. So some of you will see, particularly if you're in the south of the county, little advertising signs popped up in amongst bunches of wildflowers. And then unfortunately had to be taken down again. That was because of a planning technicality which is being resolved, and they will start to reappear probably in more appropriate places, should we say. The idea is to, for instance, you'll have seen just about anywhere sponsorship of roundabouts. You know, that's the sort of principle that I'm talking about. We've got roundabouts that have got lots and lots of wildflowers on them and a little pollinator bee sign. In Newport, for instance, you would see sponsored by XYZ Limited. That's the sort of thing that we're looking to do. We're also looking within car parks to do some suitable, and we're not talking garish, huge advertising boards, we're talking about controlled advertising. We're also looking at creating more car park spaces. Cabinet has just given some reserve funding to relieve some car parking pressures in various parts of the county, notably Monmouth. And there will be additional car parking provided that there will be a charge for. So that will enable us to utilise that money to maintain the infrastructure and the traffic management systems, and that will prevent us having to. It's not fair. We need to do something about that. We've evaluated it, and we think that by tightening up on that, we can raise some £80,000. So getting trade waste into a situation where people pay for its disposal, because if they don't, you are. The principle of that, please, on the green or red. Because as I say, if we don't get the trade people to pay for us to do it, your rates, your business, your council tax is paying for it. Thank you for that. We've just, oh, sorry.
Can I ask a question on that one? Is one of the benefits of commercial or light commercial waste going to the amenity tips is there's no fly tipping. And that's made a huge difference, the amount of fly tipping you see I live in a rural area, and there used to be the local places where the old mattress was dumped or something else was dumped, the fridge was dumped. Why don't you charge them for using it, a standard charge rate for a visit, and invoice them so that they pay for going to the community site?
That's exactly,
it's much better
that's
than
exactly.
just having the problem of dealing. You're going to have to pay for the problem of dealing with fly tipping instead, aren't you?
Yeah, that's exactly what we're going to do. That's how we're going to raise the £80. We're going to charge for it. Bodge?
There are facilities available for commercial operators to go over the weigh bridges at Llanfy, stand at 5 lanes now to pay for their commercial disposal. It's an interesting thing about the fly tipping, because when we started to limit the amount of waste which domestic places could put out, we were worried then that it would go up, but the actual fact of the matter is it didn't. But yes, it's a fair point. It is of concern, but they have got facilities, and the responsible operators do use it.
Just a quick query, Chair. Is there any reason why you've got 500,000 on it and 400,000 on the list?
You must have missed it, so I just answered that question. We've revised the figures downwards. What you've got in front of you there is the up to date, well, yeah, we're dropping 100,000. Unfortunately, the rules say that once I go out with a presentation, it's got to stay the same. So, you know, it's daft, but that's what we have to do. Yes.
I'd just like to say a comment. Since you're talking about charging for the business waste, which is a good idea, then please charge for the toilets in Abergavenny, but let's keep them.
Okay, well, I'm sure Roger, who's, as you know, is looking at that. In fact, I can see him making a note of that now. Yes, gentleman at the back, and then the lady in front of him.
When it comes to, a few people have alluded to it, paying for services such as toilets and things, what about taking a vote amongst the people here who would be prepared to pay £1 to use the toilet or something like that?
Okay, can you switch your... Okay, well, let's do that. I'll modify it to, would you, a charge for, right, green or red, would you be prepared for a charging regime within public toilets? Out with a fiver wouldn't half hell. There's always a snag. lady in front of you.
Me. We haven't tackled at all idea number 8, the additional learning need provision.
We will be.
Right. Well, I'm pleased about that.
Yeah. On several occasions now, I've had to bring everybody back. Look, if if we haven't dealt with your point, because I'm now starting to get concerned about time, if we haven't dealt with your point by the time we get to the end, there will be an opportunity to ask them. But let's try and stick to the presentation now. Otherwise, we'll be here at midnight. So, the more wildflowers and local groups maintaining local grounds. All over the county, there's groups setting up. They're really well supported. They're really keen. They want to do this sort of stuff. By, for instance, Linda Vista Gardens has got a very active community group there. There's various other groups set up right throughout in my own particular ward in Crick. There's various people doing it. That they're happy to do. It saves us having to do it, and the county looks so much better for it. So the principle of supporting local groups to do that sort of work to save money is the next one we want the green or the red cards for, please. Lady at the back.
Can I just say, you've got a really good scheme in the council at the moment. You've appointed somebody called Owen to work with to work within the council to teach people in the council how to deal with volunteers. If you're going to give lots of things out to voluntary groups, will that connection still carry on?
It'll rely on him.
Thank you.
Oh, sorry. The property review. Thank you, David. Is to do with the maintenance of public buildings. We're looking to claw back some of our current expenditure on that, and I think we've done the town and community councils one to death. So if I can move on. The next one is with regards to ALN. The chief exec has done this bit because Sarah McGuinness wasn't available when we recorded these. So I'll just hand you over to the bit that the chief executive has recorded.
This is to demonstrate what a small lean authority
Okay, so if we can go back to the 200,000 on the ALN, Abby. There was, I know somebody was going to ask a question on that earlier on, and I stopped you and I said the slide was coming up. Well, it's here. So if you'd like to, do you want me to just tell you a little bit about it first, and then that might help you with your question? We have a unit in Monmouthshire that currently is expensive to run and only has 7 children in it. 2 of those children are moving on anyway, and the parents of the other 5 are happy with alternative provision, which means that we no longer need to maintain that unit. It's lost its purpose. So that saving of £200,000 is a combination of those 2 events. 2 of the 7 children moving on, and the other 5 having alternative provision with the support of the parents. So if you'd still like to ask your question, please do.
I wanted to ask, having read in the Chronicle that the parents aren't happy with your alternative provision because it involves them travelling to Monmouth, I understand. I'd really like to ask about consultation and how happy people need to be with the decisions that you're taking on social care issues. We lost the transition service for young people going from school to adult care 3 or 4 years ago now, which caused a lot of problems and is still causing problems for young people. And if the parents aren't happy from Derryview with their children going to Monmouth, how much notice is the council taking of consultation? I ask this in the context of knowing that there was no consultation for all the major roadworks in the middle of Abergavenny that are going on at the moment. And I think that the council perhaps isn't taking seriously its consultation when it comes to people with needs.
I'll ask Will McLean to come in on the first point, and probably Roger will pick up the item about the roadworks. Will?
Okay, thank you, Penny. With regards to the issues in Derryview, absolutely, that consultation is actually part of a very formal set of consultations that have to take place, that are set down by the Welsh Government. We then have to take full and proper account of those when it comes to members taking their decisions. So to suggest that we're not going to take account of what people are telling us would clearly be erroneous, and we really do, and we always would. What is the case in the Derryview situation at the moment is that the 5 children, the 2 children will go to special provision, the other 5 will be taken into mainstream at the moment. You are right in saying that we are developing a 2-hub model for Monmouthshire to enable us to consolidate our best practice additional learning needs support in 2 centres, one in the north of the county and one in the south of the county. That's the advice that we have received and has been put in place by our specialists leading in additional learning needs. So we do at some point have to balance up what people tell us in terms of our consultation and what the expertise is telling us, alongside, of course, the ongoing pressure that we have on resources. Of course, we'd like in every area to be able to afford a specialist centre, but the truth is, at the moment, we can't afford that. So we have to make our resources fit in the best way we possibly can. So in answer to your question, we will absolutely take into full account those responses. We also have to apply a test of balance to them to make sure that they're reasonable responses and set those against the professional advice that the officers and the members will receive. And then we pass over to the members of the Cabinet and the Council to make their final decision.
Roger, do you want to pick up that highways issue?
Yeah, very quickly, I expect Jenny talking about the works in Market Street and the like. That's gas, utilities. We wouldn't consult.
Sorry. No, it isn't the gas utilities, which I've certainly seen, and they cause trip hazards at the moment. It's the fact that the whole middle is being resurfaced, ready for the Eisteddfod later in the year. And I understand that it hasn't gone out for proper consultation on what's being done. I've seen a sheet of paper, but by no means is it a proper consultation that a disability group could comment on, showing where the problems might be for disabled people.
The consultation which is taking place is with Abergavenny Town Team, and there's representatives of various different groups on there. There will be more, but it will be done fairly quickly, I'd have to say, in order we can get the works done in time for the Eisteddfod. But the works which have started has been the utility works to get that works done so they don't rip it up as soon as we put it down, quite frankly. So we have to do certain works prior to this being undertaken. But there is a group, it's not just councillors, there are representatives from various different other bodies who sit on Abergavenny Town Team, and they have been looking at that and various finishes and various designs and the extent of the scheme. We will be doing more consultation, but we have to start somewhere, and that's where we've started with this particular exercise.
Okay, can we go back to the slide, please? So, yes, sir, you... Sorry.
Historically, Monmouthshire's education system has been seen as quite good by comparison to the rest of the country. I can remember Mountain House, for instance, had people coming from Lancashire to be resident there. And some of the comprehensives that we've got around the outskirts rely on people coming from Gloucestershire quite a bit. What's our attitude towards maximising our gain from Gloucestershire? Or, in fact, are we going to reduce the size of our schools there so that we only look at Monmouthshire children?
Will, do you want to come in on that one? I mean, we still have external placements at Mountain House now. So,
yeah, just to agree with Councillor Murphy there, that Mountain House has still got more children from other places than it does from Monmouthshire, and it's a specialist type of provision, and you'd expect that to be the case. With regards to the balance of pupils that kind of flow into the county, we always work closely with our neighbouring authorities in England, of course, but we also recognise that sometimes parents make the decision for their children to be educated in England as well. So in Chepstow, there can sometimes be a flow towards Wydene. So it's swings and roundabouts, but we always try and ensure that we have a provision within Monmouthshire, which means we can educate the Monmouthshire children as best they can be. So that's the most important thing.
Going back to the specialist education side of things, I understand obviously there's going to be a unit in Monmouth. I've been talking to a lot of disability groups, adult disability groups, in relation to transport and access to activities. How's that going to affect any young person in the far north of the county accessing their education in Monmouth from the wider Monmouth County? Because obviously funding cuts have meant that transport's a big issue for people with disabilities.
I'll try and pick that one up. I'm not an educationalist professionally, so but I think what would happen is if we had provision, say in Monmouth, then we would obviously provide transport for that, so long as they met for that child, so long as they met that eligibility criteria. If it was the case that that their needs were such that they had to go to the special unit in Monmouth, then I'm sure that would be the case, and there we would meet those costs.
Lady just here, and then I'll go to the back.
Me first? I'd just like to ask our highway gentleman here. How long do you propose that we're going to put up with the disruption in Monk Street, in Abergavenny, and the fact that they're now doing something with the George, or is it going to be miraculously cleared away for the Eisteddfod?
The feedback which we've had from South Wales Trunk Road Agency, because they actually manage that piece of road rather than the County Council, is that they'd expected the work to be completed in November. it doesn't, I'd have to say, doesn't look to be much sign of that happening. We have approached them on behalf of Monmouthshire County Council on several occasions because of the amount of disruption which it causes, and it will only get worse during Christmas period. But your comments well made, and it's a reminder that we'll approach them again to see if we can get some movement there. About getting that completed. I did see the Royal George had got scaffolded as well. Maybe that's the right thing to get it done at the same time, but in any event I will on behalf of Monmouthshire County Council and perhaps yourselves make that point again.
And also we do have to put up with scaffolding in Cross Street that's been there for, it's not your baby, I don't say, but there is also scaffolding in Cross Street, which is absolutely disgraceful. Doesn't the council have powers to speak with lawyers, etc., about ownership of buildings and see exactly what is going to happen? They are eyesores.
I can only say Mr. Councillor Murphy's point well made. They are eyesores, and I will take that point up. Sounds to me like the traders are better informed than I am at the moment if they know it's going to be there till March, because that isn't the view which we've been given by Welsh Government. But I will take that matter back up.
Lady in the back.
One of the speakers earlier on mentioned about the transition service in Monmouth and it being removed. That was not my understanding. To the contrary, I thought that we'd invested in a transition service that's now been delivered out at Bridges in Monmouth, the Building Bridges project. So I just wanted to clarify that, really. I thought it had been sort of enhanced, but not taken away.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. We did put quite considerable additional sums of money into it last year and the year before's budget. So I'm not absolutely certain what's been removed, but your understanding and mine's the same. I don't know whether any of the officers can shed any more light on it, but yeah, my understanding is definitely that we've put more money into it. Let's move on. So if we can go back, that additional learning needs one was literally the closure of a unit which is being re-provisioned. Move on to the next slide, and the principle of flatlining funding to schools. That's literally the situation which we're finding there. We are required by Welsh Government over the term of their administration to protect education by 1%. We have already done that, so flatlining doesn't affect that. And in actual fact, I think sometimes it's worth saying what protecting education spend actually is. The 1% protection is over and above the settlement made to us. So last year they cut our money by 4.3%. That meant that we're given 1% protection, we could cut education by 3.3%. In actual fact, we flatlined it. So this year we're flatlining it again. Internal reorganisation within education is enable them to deal with that. And in actual fact, school reserves went up last year rather than the anticipated reduction. So flatlining money to schools on that basis. Can I see red or green for that, please?
Point of clarity, Chair.
Schools are run by their governors, and their budgets pay the wages. So any costs associated with wages, like additional national insurance, is part of that cost, so it has to be dealt with by the individual schools' budgets.
Just clarify that there's a big increase in national insurance contributions, both the employers and the employees' national insurance coming in in April. So it means it'll be effectively a double whammy on the school budget, because they'll have to pay both sides of the big increase. So.
Thank you for that.
So moving on then to the next slide, from the next one please, Abby. Reduction in funding to voluntary organisations. Paul Matthews said quite a lot about that in his piece. The position is that we're having to reduce our funding packages overall. That doesn't mean to say that anybody's going to be cut off. They're not going to be cut off at all. But there will be reductions in funding. Other organisations can often source their funding elsewhere. It isn't necessarily the case that it always has to be from Monmouthshire County Council, and in fact the vast majority of outside organisations already have their additional funding streams. We're being cut, so unfortunately we're having to pass that cut on. But the general principle of effectively, well, not making, but putting voluntary organisations in a position where they have to look for funding other than from Monmouthshire County Council to support their funds. Can I have a general show of agreement or not to that? Not universally popular. Okay, thank you very much for that. The business rate appeals, that's an internal matter. Discretionary fees, the target income, it says there 10%. In actual fact, there will be charges that will have to be raised, and they're not able to be raised by anything like 10%. 10% would be a maximum wherever it's possible. There was a question asked on the town and community councils about the difference between the 500,000 and the 400,000. That's actually been revised downwards very, very recently, our expectation from that. The principle that I'd like an indication on, though, is not that figure or the 10%, but a general increase in charges where possible, over and above 2.5% to try and ensure that the service keeps running, rather than not covering the costs associated with it and thereby risking its failure. So generally, people have said to us before, don't close the service, charge us more for it. Can I have a general show of support or otherwise for that? Okay, thanks for that. Efficiencies through senior management, Paul's said a lot about that, and we've also had a lot of discussion on collaboration and other reviews. This is where we do stuff for other authorities do it for us. We provide the highways service Roger spoke about through the Trunk Roads Agency. We're doing everything we can to find additional ways of doing it where we can't do it ourselves, or helping other authorities do exactly the same thing. So on the principle of it doesn't really matter who provides the service as long as the service keeps going, can I have red or green cards, please? The general principle is we keep it going, it doesn't matter who provides it. Okay, thank you for that. Next. Yes, sir.
You talked a lot now on collaboration with the community councils and the town councils.
Well, Roger's actually been out doing that, so let's hear from him. Can you press your button, please, sir? Can you press your button?
But Will and myself are working on putting together some further papers to go back out to the community councils now, so as they can have more actual information about what we're talking about, so as they can take it into account when they're looking at their precepts.
Can I just say that in Monmouthshire, the adult services around social care, you do an awful lot with the third sector to provide services, and it's a really good model. You've won awards for it. But with your children's services, you don't talk to the third sector at all. I'd just like to have a plea, really, for some talking to start going on and some of the transfer of good ideas to come from adult services to children's services.
Okay, point well made, and we'll pass that one on. If we can go on, because we're just going past 1 o'clock, and I know we need to be finishing, so we can go to the next slide, please, Abby. You asked about putting more money in. We're going to put more money into children's services, so children's social services. There's a lot of pressure there. The Chief Exec spoke about additional children. We cannot do anything other than provide additional funding for children's social services, and an additional 483,000 will be going into that. We are an authority that pays the living wage. You'll have heard a lot about the government has set new parameters for what's called the new living wage, and we are increasing our funding to care homes of all descriptions to enable them to ensure that their staff are also paid that amount of money without it impacting on the care that they're giving to their residents. We've talked about the holding funding for schools. We've already talked about local services seeking alternative delivery models. And with regards to our staff, unlike some authorities in the area where they've cut the terms and conditions or restricted them with respect to staff, Monmouthshire is not known as the most generous of employers in terms of salary. We certainly have got no intention to reduce our staff benefits, and I can tell by the looks that's coming from the officers over there that they agree with that. Next one. Next one, Abby. So even if we do all of that, that slide says that we'll still be short by 1.7 million. Since this presentation, and as I said earlier, I have to go out with the presentation that I started with. I have to give the same to everybody. That's the rules. In actual fact, that's gone up. That's nearer 3 million now. So there's still a lot of work to do. We have got some ideas. They're internal, and they don't really impact on the public at all. There's a paper coming out to Cabinet on the 3rd of December, which will explain all of that. But it's to do with the way we handle our money. It's the way that we adopt a policy that we have to ask the Wales Audit Office's permission to change. If we are given that permission, that will punch a very big hole in that 3.4 million or 3 million. But unfortunately, that's not something I can discuss now. It's not even a matter for the public. It's the Wales Audit Office giving us permission to do what we want to do. So we'll be advancing different ways of working. We'll be utilising all those other streams that we've discussed throughout the morning. We will reconsider how we commission and provide services to our children with specific needs, picking up your point at the back there. We will be reviewing the charges that we make internally for repaying debt, and there will unfortunately be more staff efficiencies, although as Roger said with regards to his highways operatives, where it's possible to transfer them to somewhere else rather than recruit and make people redundant, we will do that. Redundancy will be the very last thing that we will do. council tax, that's a real issue. It is for a lot of people. As a gentleman there said earlier on, we did have 2 years where we froze council tax because we were so concerned about the effect that the downturn in the general economy had on people's budgets. We were only able to do that for 2 years, and then we had to start having increases again. We do have a working assumption within the figures that we've been discussing at the moment that there will be a rise of 4.95% this year. That is not set in tablets of stone, and depending on the other irons in the fire, so to speak, if they all come forward, we may well be able to revise that. And certainly on an ongoing basis, we've got no desire to see those rises continue. I cannot at this stage say any more about that. It really depends on the success of all of these plans that we've got coming together that will enable us to decide on an appropriate level of increase of council tax. Bear in mind that a 1% increase on council tax only brings in £400,000. So, you know, we can't solve these problems with council tax rises. That's the end of this morning's session. There will be more events going on. This presentation will be repeated for those sad enough to want to come in Abergavenny tonight. We will be finishing the consultation on the 30th of November. The reason for that is that we need as much time as we possibly can to work everything up, to taking account of all of the comments made by members of the public and the business community, and do the necessary equality assessments and everything that ensures the robustness of that. The 21st of January will be the debate in council on our proposals, and we will be setting the level of council tax on the 10th of March. And the one thing that will have happened between now and then, hopefully, is the Welsh Government will have told us what our settlement is, and we will then know precisely what it is that we are supposed to be dealing with, and that will enable us to make that decision. So, thank you for your questions. I think we gave everything a pretty fair airing today. It's always very valuable when we get well thought out questions, and I can assure you that these were well thought out questions today. I really do appreciate it. Thank you for attending, and have a safe journey home.
Can I just ask everyone to have a look at the Monmouthshire Voices form and let me have your comments about digital inclusion and whether that's something that interests you. And also the engagement team has asked if any of you would like to be interviewed about whether you like to go to the gym or not. They're doing a little short film, I think, so if you want to, come and see me afterwards and come and have some lunch.